insurance penetration in Nigeria is very low. What are you doing differently to increase penetration among farmers in the industry?
I think you hit the nail on the head. Penetration is low across the country, but the industry is doing a lot more in terms of creating awareness, engaging people, and helping people to understand that it's easy for you to access solutions. So typically before, it's the big farmers, the industrialized farmers who get some solutions from insurance. But in reality, there is also an opportunity for smallholders to collaborate, work in platforms, work in cooperatives or associations, and access the same level of solutions. From our end, for example, we have different support structures for SMEs, for individuals. You can insure your assets, you can insure the crops themselves, you can actually even insure the people. Sometimes we forget the people are very important in this space. And if you look at one of the last slides that the doctor showed to us, it's the incomes that are the problems. How do you ensure that we support you as a safety net when you lose your income? It's the adverse weather. So we have something called parametric insurance. And what does this do? It looks at metrics. It looks at the weather, or it looks like crop yield. So when you work together to insure yourself from weather, we look at data. We have access to, satellite data from many years ago, and we can literally predict the chances and the expected results. So when you access this, it helps you in planning your farming, and you don't even need to say anything to anyone to claim in this instance. So claims are paid out once the weather doesn't meet the required metrics. Same thing for crop yields, for example. So these are some of the solutions available. We work with some of the government institutions, whether it's NISAR or a lot of NAIC, for example, is also trying to be more innovative and work with the industry. So we have more mainstream insurance companies supporting farmers as well as people generally in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll pass.
Same question. The area where I would like to buttress on is that when you are talking about low penetration, it's about communication. And communication is both ways. Like this forum that we are in now is part of the awareness program that can enhance people to know that is there even insurance applicable to farming business? Many people will be surprised that they are hearing it for the first time. So people that have made the effort to be here today, some people might be hearing for the first time. And that there are insurance companies that are registered, both publicly owned and privately owned, that can give you a helping hand in the business of agriculture, either you are a small scale, medium scale, or a large scale. We have NAIC, that is Nigerian Agricultural Insurance Corporation, that is the government established, and most of the policies there, the contracts there, are subsidized to help the farmers. About 5 years ago, when there was this bird flu, and there are so many people that the government have to rescue, that was when the awareness was now brought by the former Minister of Agriculture that there are supposed to be insurance for all these people, especially those that are being financed by CBN. And they found out that many of them do not even have insurance. And they now have to mandate that, okay, all the money deposit banks that are advancing this loan on behalf of CBN, they are now mandated that they must package an insurance policy as part of the condition for those facilities. But people that are not even using credit by government, individual that you are using your own money, even though you are small, you can still insure. You can meet companies like AXA Mansard, you can meet companies like NICE, you can meet companies like Leadway. Our company are putting some things in place in the shortest period of time. We'll roll out some products that can meet your needs. But the fact is that either the farm implements, the caterpillar, the tractor, the farm itself, the crops, or the logistics that come in like warehousing, all of them are exposed to risk. It's only when we identify them and measure them, we can now talk about insurance to control them. But those risks are ever present. But many people are not aware. So the first thing, if you are a farmer, you have to sit down and look at what are the risks that I'm exposed to. Because there are so many ways to manage them beside insurance. The essence of insurance is that to put you back in the same financial position you are before that loss occur. So if you are running a poultry, for instance, now you have like 500 or 1,000 birds, either broilers or layers, what can go wrong? There could be epidemic. There could be invasion of pests. like soldier ant in your pen, what can you do before those things happen? Meet an insurance company or anyone that is knowledgeable in insurance business. They might not be the insurance company, they might be the representative, the agent or broker. They can give you advice that what can you do, which company can you go to, and what type of this coverage, what does it cover? Because those are areas where people have some misconception that insurance will cover everything. No, insurance doesn't cover everything. So it's like a normal contract. If you want to enter into a contract, there will be terms and conditions applicable. So they will take time to explain to you. And the fees are very small compared to what you stand to benefit. If you have an exposure of like ₦1 million, what you will pay as premium will be as cheap as 30,000 naira. So you have more to gain. But what they say is that knowledge is power. So as you are here, when you live here as well, I will enjoy all of us that we should try to give them that information that yes, insurance is available in Nigeria and can take care of the risk that we face as farmers.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adaramola. So what I'm hearing right now is a lot about commercial farmers. So what about the smallholder farmers? How do they get into insurance? Do they do it through cooperatives? If they want insurance, how do they get it? Is anybody insuring the smallholder farmers?
So, which is what I mentioned earlier. Typically, smallholder farmers can get more benefits from skill. Insurance is a business of probability and skill. So when you work together with a group of people, perhaps an association, it could be catfish farmers, it could be, pineapple, whichever sector you are in, whichever kind of crops you are focused on, whichever channel you are, in the value chain, it could be an off-taker. So there are different things that you can do in that space to insure yourselves. You get better pricing when you are in a group than when you're an individual. But right now, you can actually access cover already. So anyone at all now could cover perhaps your bird cages, your farm, from, on fatalities or weather or adverse risk. It can be from wear and tear, for example. So insurance doesn't cover wear and tear because we know this is normal. And one of the interesting things that we're doing more of now as an industry is that we're also helping to teach people to be more aware of their risk, which is one of the things Mr. Adaramola was saying. You need to understand your risk more. So we are creating more support platforms, more people, and we can even train people amongst the farm associations themselves and cooperatives to better support yourself. So it's somebody that you know that you are working with. This way you can access it. But right now, you can walk up, you can go online, you can actually get insured anywhere. But some people say farmers are not online, but they are actually working with different sort of like aggregators on different platforms, because sometimes we're accessing government funds, sometimes we're accessing fertilizers and support from World Bank or IFC or any of these sort of institutions. So people get it then because it's free. But the reality is that the free ones stop once the funding stops. But your business lives beyond the free or funding that you get at the initial stage. Your business is still growing. And you need to ensure that you keep driving the growth in this business so that we don't become destitute. When we talk about poor people, 30% of the people being poor, it doesn't mean farmers cannot be rich or wealthy or comfortable. It just means that you need to protect yourself. Should in case anything happens, something that can be a safety net for you, that's what we're here for, and we do provide that now.
Thank you very much. Okay, hold on 1 minute.
Thank you very much. One thing, just going back to the initial question back about just why there is even low penetration of insurance. Nobody wants to read that stuff because of the legal aspects, and everybody's just so scared to look at it. And I think that's why it's very important you have folks like this. You go talk to them if you needed information. I totally agree that information is very, very important. And yes, smallholder farmers can get insurance. And when we hear about insurance, I know most of you in here, if you have a car, I'm suspecting you have insurance on that car, and ask yourself, why do you have insurance? Chances are someone else is forcing you to do it, the government or someone. If you don't have car insurance and you're stopped by the police, then you know you're going to get in trouble. But then when it comes to something that you really very valuable, like you saw, a majority of the farmers live in the rural area, and that's the only thing that you have. So I strongly believe that it's important you check into the different aspects insurance. And when it comes to agriculture insurance, really, like my colleagues here have stated, it's just not one item. You'll be surprised at what is insured out there. And it really, it's very helpful if you just look at it, because you can pick and choose. It's like going on a buffet, a menu, and decide I want to insure this aspect or this one or this one. And you'll be surprised at the number of products that are out there for smallholder farmers and even large-scale farmers.
Thank you. As Mrs. Adebisi said, we don't insure wear and tear. What about the risk involved in farming equipment, like agriculture machines, equipment? Who covers that?
So typically when you buy a machine, it has a useful economic life, right? It means that you can use it for a certain period of time. And after that period, we need to change some parts. We need to maybe replace it and get something new. So what insurance will cover is that, do we have a damage? Do you have a fire outbreak? Things of this nature will be covered ordinarily. But when, just like your car, it gets old and you need to change it. So we need to ensure. So one of the things we do is to work with the company to understand that, you need to service. We work with the whole value chain of suppliers as well to make sure that we're putting the right, service maintenance in place, so that whatever happens, insurance is about the point that I've done everything I need to do. I've been a good company. I've put in all the risk mitigants and measures, but something just went wrong. Who covers you at that point in time? Who helps you ensure you can pay back your loan? This is what we do. We provide that risk, mitigant for you. And you talked about risk transfer, but wear and tear is a reality of life, and unfortunately, it's always difficult to sort of like balance that out. But I don't know if
Thank you for the question. Depreciation and wear and tear, they are certainty. Insurance, mostly when you are talking about properties, is about probability of an event, so it must be accidental in nature and unplanned for. You can certainly plan for your depreciation by keeping some amount of money over a period of time. So your accountant will advise you that should we charge it on straight line, on some other basis of measurement. You can measure it from the beginning. So insurance is not for such type of risk. Where you have certainty and insurance will still cover it is for life. So if you take a credit now, you, the person that you take the credit from a finance organization, we can have insurance for key man if anything happens to you before you make the repayment. So what we are covering there is not that everybody will die one time or the other, but the timing. If you have not finished paying the money back, the creditor will lose his money he has advanced. So for the period you have that credit unpaid, they will give you a key man insurance or term insurance for the life. But for risks such as depreciation, insurance will not take care of that. But the farm implement, you can insure them. They can be damaged by so many other perils, like fire and some other type of, there could be flood as well. There could be flood at the farm. The farmhouse itself can be insured. Your employees, when you have employees more than 5, the law says you need to have group life assurance for them. It's part of the regulatory requirement of the country. As you do pension for them, you must do group life for them. So there are so many areas where the interest of the farmer, either you are a small scale holder or a commercial farmer, where your exposures lie. The missing link is usually like, 1, what do we value? And 2, where do we seek help? What do we value? Sometimes you see that somebody have insurance for the car, but he does not have insurance for his life. That's where the issue of value comes in. And when you tell the person, you might say, well, my life is in the hand of God. But you can still do some things because of your dependents. Because of your dependents, you care about enough for them that you are here today, you are the breadwinner, you are the main farmer. What if anything happens to you? What if you are injured during the time you are working in the farm? What happens to your dependents? So insurance is always there as a backup for those unfortunate events that could occur.
Well, we hear a lot of stories on the news where people are not getting their money back from their insurance, government doesn't want to pay back, and a lot of people don't really believe in it. It's just the myth. Are you going to get your money back, or there's one story or the other, we're waiting on government? How do you build trust, especially for the smallholder farmers, for them to actually get the insurance? Trust saying that, oh, if anything happens or anything, I will get my money back, or so forth. So I want to ask Dr. Luvaga, how do we create trust? How do we build that trust with farmers?
I think the most important thing is you need to do your research. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't like to do that extra work. If you're going to spend the time and get the best insurance you want, you need to look into it. Because really, and like my colleagues say, there are those horror stories where people always think that I'm not going to get insurance because I'm not going to be paid anyway. But there are some companies that do pay back, and you shouldn't be afraid just because of one horror story. But if you talk to more people, find out, and I found that references, if you are referred by people who are a part of a good insurance scheme or plan, you'll be just fine. Other than that, really, I think there are a lot of things that we kind of buy out there and look into by the grace of God, but we don't really end up being afraid to do it. But I think you should really go and look into it and do background research and talk to friends, talk to family members and other people. And I'm sure my colleagues here who are in the industry, they will probably tell you the best way to spot an insurance plan that is a fraud.
So can farmers adequately and reasonably be indemnified at the occurrence of loss? So it's from Mansard.
You said that farmers are able to claim when they have losses. Yeah, I mean, the process has improved significantly in terms of claiming. I mean, if you go from even your farm assets like your farm car, you can literally even claim these days via an SMS, online. So there are many improvements and innovations that we're seeing in the insurance industry that is going to drive and support that. I mentioned parametrics weather. On the weather insurance, you don't even need to do anything. Once we've done a projection, there's an expectation. It doesn't meet the expectation, the payment is made once the season is over. If it's a crop yield, we work with aggregator systems. They've done the validation, they do the spot checks, the claims are paid. So those are very simple for crops. When it comes to human beings, and we're talking about life, for example, it's a very quick process as well. It doesn't take forever. And what is wonderful is that you make sure that the proceeds of the claim goes to the person who requires it most. You can pick, you don't need to have a best friend or someone you like. You are sure that your plan is achieved. So whatever the claims benefit goes to what we call a beneficiary, the person who you expect to get. It could be your children, it could be your spouse. We're in a country sometimes where people, our family members, can take over the assets of people, and so that in itself affects you. So claims processing has improved significantly across the industry. What is important is that please don't buy insurance just because your friend is the one that is selling it to you. As the prof said, the doctor said, you need to check how well they are doing. Before you pick a bank, you look for banks that are doing well. Don't go for price. It's not about price. Ask, what are you covering? 3 of us can give you different prices for different covers. We'll call it the same name. That might not be what you need. So you need to understand what exactly is this risk, which is what the first point. And one of the things we're all doing better is that we can work with you. As AXA Mansard, we're working to be a partner. So we ask you, what's your biggest worry? What keeps you up at night? That's what you should think about. And who do you live for? What is important to you? We launched an initiative recently called She, and it's for women, because we find out that even though we have a population size of 50%, almost 50% women, and all the small SMEs being started up now, about 75% of them are women. They're actually not as covered as men. We still have more men being insured. So the She initiative in AXA is called Superheroes Every Day, because we believe women are actually superheroes every day. And it's not because we're ignoring the men, by the way, because we're also supporting the men. But we're just saying, how do we help people and make it easy for you to access different benefits and be able to get the right level of support. I think these are very important things for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
The process of identification or settling of claim, it starts with the client. the insured. When there is a loss, your contract will usually tell you what to do. So if you take those steps, it will hasten the cycle. But if you do not follow those steps, there could be delay. If you do not, for instance, itemize what you have lost and put value, if you leave that one for guesswork, or when they ask very clear question, for instance, that who is the owner of those items? Is it on lease or are you the owner? If you can't answer those type of questions, they will have to investigate. Those investigations, they will call professionals called loss adjusters. Those are the areas that takes time for the cycle to be complete. But if the customer is said that suffered loss, mind you, what you are getting back is not what you have paid, it's what you have lost. So it's a pool of risk that the insurance company are managing. So they have to be fair to you, and they have to be fair to all the people that have contributed to that pool. So sometimes they will need to verify your claim. It's not just enough that, hey, I've lost, I've lost 30 cows. They will ask some questions about, okay, how many cows did you insure in the first instance? Where are they? Are they on a free range, or are you migrating from one place to the other? They will ask some questions. So those are the things that takes time. But if you are playing your own role, the claim process is something that the insurance company will always live up to expectation. The reason why is that it's a very regulated industry. The regulators will not want to hear that anybody is defaulting. And if there are defaults, there are penalties which the insurance company don't want to pay. So it's in the interest of everybody that we all play our role as at Wandieville.
Thank you, Mr. Adaramola. Thank you. So Mrs. Adebisi wanted to expand more on location and specifics.
Okay, so with the parametrics insurance, we have about 6 farms in the north and in the central of Nigeria that we've insured this year because we only just got regulatory approval for that. I won't mention the names of the farms, unfortunately, but we also had quite a few claims last year for some of the agri sector. And I think the longest claim that took a while because documentations were not finalized took 2 weeks. Actually, 2 of the claims were paid within a 7-day period. And that's really between the reporting of that claim and concluding the claim and crediting the bank account of the particular farmers. So these are things that are happening. They are real. It's not a story. But I think what is most important is that we need to validate, and from inception, we validate what is being insured. Once that is done, then claiming on it is a lot easier. And we're also working on more innovations to make sure that you can actually be less stressed in doing all these things, and we can validate it. We have so many tools now from the technology side that you can use to keep a record, and make sure that it's clear that you are the ones that own this particular asset. But we try to make sure that we don't cause problems by ensuring we get full information ahead from inception. That way, claim management is very quick.
How are you, Rasheedat?
Fine, thank you.
Yeah. You talked about metrics that is used to measure the weather to at least that could cover so that you could cover the natural disaster. I want you to please correct me and some other people that are here, because the old-time knowledge is that insurance doesn't cover natural disaster. So how does this issue of metrics come to analyze the natural disaster and still cover it? Maybe they give us samples of natural disasters that has been covered, because we just did some rice farming and we didn't get such cover. Thank you.
Okay, we'll just answer one question. Ms. Rasheedat, do you want to answer that?
Okay, I think I'll take the one that you gave to me. So in terms of weather impacts, it's not necessarily hurricanes, which we don't have in Nigeria, by the way, or what we call acts of God are not what we cover. What does parametric do when you look at a weather-based insurance? And I think to clarify that, we look at the probability that you are going to have either a drought or too much rain. One of the slides shown earlier, they talked about the causes, things that affect the crop and the yield. And it's really about either excess moisture or not enough rain. So what parametric does is looks at the weather. So if we have too much water, it means that it would affect your yield. Or if we don't have enough water or rain, it means that the yield will also be affected. So this is what we cover. But if it's a hurricane or anything of that natural, it's usually the government that would support that. They're not typically insured, maybe.
Thank you.
I want to ask about livestock insurance because we've not heard anything about that yet.
Livestock is also insurable, but we have minimum. For instance, if you are into cow husbandry or goats or pig, they have minimum number. So depending on how many you have, different companies have different limits. But if you have more than that, certainly you can be sure. But livestock insurance, both for birds and other animals, poultry, all of them are insurable.
Farmers were told by the, I think meteorological studies, report, that there will be rains all through this year, maybe towards the end of October for our state, and that didn't happen. And we have a practical experience. More than 31 hectares of farmland for my farmers that are managing spoiled. They can't even account for 20 bags out of 31 hectares. And these farms were insured. Will you pay for that?
One of the things that I'd like just to let you know, sometimes I think when it comes to insurance, there is a lot of misunderstanding where sometimes someone may end up, they were anticipating 21 bags and they get 20 and now they think they have to be really compensated for that extra bag. For the most part, insurance doesn't really work like that. And like we said earlier, when you insure whatever it is, and I'll use an example of the United States, because in the US, agricultural insurance has come down to where really there are not very many companies involved anymore. The companies have been going down and down until right now I think we are up to about 16. And the reason for that, it's very, very risky, because if you see some of the things that are being insured, for the most part, it's usually floods and then the drought. So those two are the big ones. And when it comes to those two big ones, when it happens, when there is a drought, it's going to impact a large number of farmers. It's not going to be, your neighbor is going to be out. It's not like a car insurance. And therefore, some of that is usually anticipated by the insurance companies because they'll see what is going on and they start preparing for that. And I'm not sure how that works here in Nigeria. But I would think it basically those end up being the big two. And if you talk to a lot of farmers right now, one of the major issues that they raise has to do with climate change. Every farmer you talk to who is in the crop production will tell you that the big deal is climate change. And what does that mean? It's drought or floods.
But we're told that there will be rains.
Okay.
So we went on to plant.
To plant?
Yes.
Okay, in that instance, if the farms were insured using the weather-based metric insurance policy, as I said earlier, the parametrics was approved for ourselves, NAIC, Leadway, and a couple of companies earlier this year. Just actually a few months back. If you have done a weather-based insurance that expected rain and you have drought, there will be a payout. So that's how it works. And so I'm not sure who exactly you insured with.
Sorry,
in this instance.
We got the loan from the bank and we paid a certain percentage of money for insurance. So honestly, we don't know if it's a weather-based.
So what type of insurance? So I think the questions are very clear. When we're taking loans from the banks, they will give you insurance, but you need to validate what you're covering and what risk you're exposed to. Because we don't know what the contract might be that the loan you took is covering the credit risk of the loan not being paid. It might not cover your crop. So it's very important. There are two things we're covering here. I'm sorry that I'm just taking a little bit of time because we have to stop now. But you're covering either the crop or the loan going bad. So it could be either of these things. And there are two different risks entirely. So it's very important that we try and make sure that we're covering the right risks. If we don't do this, then we won't see a payout.